How are we feeling about the championship? Lando getting there, Red Bull locking up second. They might fall to third. How are we feeling?
I think Lando's definitely still in it. He's got to perform really, really well. I mean, like, winning races is necessary at this point to stay in the championship. And as far as Charles goes, I think he's unfortunately out of it after this. I mean, maybe mathematically he could still win, but I don't think it's possible for him to uh, actually win 86 points. It would have had to been like Charles win and Max DNF to keep him actually in it, but I think the Constructors Championship is wide open still. McLaren's obviously, I think they've got like a 41 point lead, so I think they're doing pretty well. I mean, it's still possible for Red Bull to make it up if they move some drivers around. But I think Ferrari's definitely in it for second place for sure. It'll be interesting to see those two teams fight at the end of the season. I mean, I think it very well could come down to the last race of the season for second place for sure. Right now, it's looking like McLaren has first locked up, but I mean, again, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly all on the table still. And like we have said many times, there is still plenty of tracks that Charles Leclerc and Ferrari have performed great at in the past. And so maybe it probably is a gap too far for Charles Leclerc. I think Saturday, unfortunately, probably sealed his fate of not being in the Drivers' Championship for this year. It is still mathematically possible, technically, for everyone in the top seven. Sergio Perez has been the latest driver eliminated from championship contention. Maybe he was eliminated in Bahrain, but I won't go too deep into that at this moment. And so maybe those points that Charles Leclerc gains is now working more towards a Ferrari Constructors Championship fight more than an individual Drivers' Championship fight. And of course, Lando Norris, we've seen him perform well at some of these tracks. I mean, we saw him lead quite a few laps at COTA last year. Was this a championship drive from Lando Norris? Won in absolutely dominating fashion, very similar to how he won at Zandvoort, and it was a very similar high downforce package, so maybe this type of track very much so suits the McLaren. He set up a pole time that really no one came close to matching. Sunday, as soon as he somehow managed to keep the lead from turn one, which is something he hasn't done before, once that overtake didn't happen for Max, I pretty much knew it was over, and then Lando just drove away. At this moment, based on form, momentum, the gap, should Lando now be the favorite for the title?
I mean, that's a really tough question. Lando's driving really well right now. With the gap where it is, though, 52 points, I don't think I would still have to put my money on Max Verstappen to be the champion at the end of the season, because I mean, it just requires like no mistakes from Lando, and it requires Max to not be at the top of his game. And unfortunately, with past performance, Max is always at the top of his game from what I've seen, and Lando is prone to making some mistakes, which we almost saw. We were literally in like an inch away from seeing happening in Singapore. So I think that my money still has to be on Max Verstappen, unless something drastic happens in Austin, which I hope it does, because that would be amazing. I think I just have to put my money on Max still.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I think the gap still is big enough that I would favor Max Verstappen, but it is coming down fairly quick, and we do still have 6 races and 3 sprints, so there is plenty of time for Lando Norris to make up this ground and get these points back. Red Bull is supposedly bringing some upgrades to Austin. I have heard that it has maybe been limited by Sergio Perez crashing again. Unfortunately, that might be limiting their upgrades, and so it will be interesting to see what Red Bull's form is in Austin. And they also resurfaced Austin, which means some of the bumps might be gone. Maybe that favors Red Bull a little bit. I think if Red Bull was in the form that we saw in Monza and Baku, maybe I would be more worried. But then we coming off of Singapore with Max finishing second and his second place never even being in doubt from Oscar Piastri, that makes me think that, okay, maybe they're starting to slowly figure things out at Red Bull. They've said that maybe they understand the floor upgrades a little bit more. Maybe they're getting the setups more right. So they themselves have said that they're starting to understand the car a bit more. And you probably even saw that with Sergio Perez's performance in Baku, even though it unfortunately didn't end well for him. And so maybe Red Bull is starting to figure some things out that will help Max Verstappen hang on to that Drivers' Championship. But the more we go through these races and the gap goes down, I'm certain we're at least going to see a close title fight to end out the year, even if Lando Norris can't get it done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I still expect Lando to make up some ground, but I honestly think that it's gonna be really close, maybe under 10, 15 points at the end of the season, but I think Max is still gonna come out on top. That's just my gut feeling right now. But anything is possible in Formula One, which is why this is an amazing sport.
Man, could you imagine if it came down to those 7 points they gave up in Hungary? That would be insane. Plus the points they gave up in Monza. Oh, I couldn't imagine the conversations we're gonna have after the year about McLaren if that is the case. But right now, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.